What's the least they need to know in order to get the result that they want? That is the reason you shouldn't give too much, not that it's giving too much away and revealing too much. It's don't give them too much because it's not helpful. It's not effective and it's not going to help them to achieve what they want to achieve. So be extremely discerning in how much you give your clients in delivery. Hey, it's Samantha Hartley of the Profitable Joyful Consulting Podcast. This is season 16, and we are talking about powerful questions that help you reveal yourself to yourself and help you with your clients. What are the kinds of questions that we can ask to get more from ourselves, from our work, all those kinds of things. So thought-provoking questions. Today's question comes from consultants who they tend to be doing a lot of content marketing, and they just start to hit up against this concept of I am writing a lot of value posts and I'm doing videos and I'm doing webinars and white papers and I'm sharing so much content. I'm sharing the steps of how I work and case studies. And eventually you'd think people could just figure it out for themselves. Am I giving away too much? So that's a question that I hear a lot. I also hear this sometimes in the proposals process and in discovery sessions. Consultants will ask me, how much should I actually put into these things? So I'm going to answer the question, am I giving away too much relative to a few certain areas like that? So before I start, I just want to share that I think that the root of this question is a scarcity versus an abundance mindset. And I am all in favor of an abundance mindset. I really believe that we need to act not from scarcity, but from the belief that, listen, there are plenty of clients out there, and your clients want to work with you. And even if they heard the exact same stuff from somebody else, and even if somebody stole your ideas and took them and ran off and did a similar thing with them, your people still want you. So I affirm that for myself and for my clients all the time. Your people want you and they want to hear it from you. So if you sometimes feel well, even I'm kind of I learned these ideas from somebody else, they want to hear your ideas. That's why I want the first piece of this to be I want you to feel confident and at peace with this sense of abundance. Your people will find you. They're looking for you right now. And your job is to worry about your clients and your potential clients and not pay attention to what everyone else is doing. That's the abundance idea. From here, where I want to go is to talk about strategically. Strategically, how much should we be giving away and in which situations? Because that to me is the question. It's a question of effectiveness, not a question about abundance and scarcity. So the first place that I want to look at this is in discovery sessions, because it's really the first place that we encounter people who come in. There's a lot of people who say don't coach in your discovery sessions. You're not supposed to do that. And I'm going to just explain briefly that a discovery session is a time when you are asking questions of a potential client and you're discerning whether this is someone that you think is a good fit for your services. When you look at them, when you learn about them as much as we can learn about someone before we get to work with them, can you ascertain enough information to figure out if they're a good fit for you? Some people who don't know how to do a good discovery session, will just do a free coaching session. They're I'll just talk to them on the phone. And then because they're casual about it, because they don't have a structure or a formal process for doing discovery sessions, they kind of default into the comfort zone of I'll just start giving them a bunch of advice. And then they get off the phone with that person. And, if you liked that advice, then you could hire me. So it's kind of like a sampling session. They got an idea for what I could do for them, and now they'll hire me. Well, the truth is, sometimes they will and sometimes they won't, but that's not the proper way to do a discovery session. Without getting into how to do a discovery session, what I want to talk about is when you're doing one following the discovery process, which means asking a lot of questions mostly, and then very close to the end, when you've discerned that you think someone is a good fit for you, it's okay for you to say, here's how I would help you. And then you're going to lay some things out. When you lay those things out, you're going to lay out high-level strategies and you're not going to get into nitty-gritty. So in a discovery session, can you give away too much? Not if you do it following that kind of a process. Having said that, I am a believer in doing a little bit of coaching or feedback in a discovery session for the reason that I want to see how a person receives feedback. I want to hear when I say, well, actually, here's what I think your issue is. I want to hear if that person says, no, I don't think so. Or if they say, oh my gosh. Or if they say, oh, yeah, I agree with you. I think that's what it is. I'm listening for that. So with discernment, I am sharing, 3 to 4 sentences, not like hours and hours of giving them free advice. I'm giving them some ideas about the approach that I would take and the ideas that I have for them. That is the right amount to give in a discovery session. If you feel like someone is coming there for free advice, then they're not in the right place. If you feel that if they themselves default unintentionally and with no ill will, if they just default into like asking you questions because they're like, yeah, that does seem to be the problem. Like, what should I do about that? Then it's okay to say, well, that's the kind of thing that we would work on if we were to work together. So discovery sessions in general are a place that consultants tend to give away too much or can ever give away too much information. And so I want to share that is kind of the boundary around those. The next place that I see consultants giving away too much information is in proposals. And so I have just as I have entire episodes about doing discovery sessions, I have other episodes about doing proposals. I also have a free video about what a proposal should look like. It's a free gift that you can get at samanthahartley.com/super, where my other free gifts are. So if you want to track that down and find that one, then go ahead and download that and use the template that I provide and listen to the video training where I talk about what to include and what not to include in a proposal. But for today's purposes, in terms of giving away too much, I had some clients come to me a few years ago who said, well, we don't want to put too much information in here because what might happen, and this had happened to them in the past, is that they had a very voluminous description of what they were going to do for a client. The client gave it to another company and said, can you do this better, faster, cheaper? The company said yes, and they lost that client. Scarcity mindset would say, don't put too much in there or else someone might steal it. I would say don't put too much in there because you don't want that client micromanaging you, which is what can happen when you have too much information in there. The other thing is you don't need that in a proposal. This isn't like a project plan. A project plan comes later once they've agreed to work with you. So a proposal is just the place where you put the things that we've talked about, and these are the things that we agree to. And here's the overall strategies or the overall phases of our work together. That's what's going to happen here. And if you just put that high level, because we've already talked about it, then you don't need to have it in a proposal. And when the client says, yes, we'll do this, and signs and makes a payment, sends you a check, then you can say, step 1, here's our project plan. And that's got all the detail in there because they have now purchased that level of detail. Okay, so proposals tend to be a place where we can give too much away in a way that isn't helpful for anyone. And so that's your boundary around proposals. The third place should be discerning about how much information you give away is in delivery once you're working with a client. But wait a minute, Samantha, that's weird. I'm already working with a client. Shouldn't I just generously give away information to them? No, because it's super unhelpful. We have to have the most maximum discernment once we're working with a client about not giving away too much information. It's not that we're withholding information that they could benefit from. It's that giving too much information is impossible to absorb, not helpful to them in implementing. They can get completely overwhelmed. And depending on what timelines you're working on with them, it can cause them to say, we have to delay. We have to just take a pause in what we're doing because we cannot, we can tell that we're running behind. Like we're trying to do what you say and we're running behind because this is like a lot for us. And so we need to take a break so that we can digest all of this information that we already have. It's great information. And then we'll come back to you and then they'll never come back because they've been overwhelmed and overloaded and they feel like they're the problem because you've given them too much. So the expression that I talk about, and I've talked about this before when we're creating signature systems and signature programs, and also when we're working together with the client, is what's the least they need to know? What's the least they need to do? This could be another really helpful question. What's the least they need to know in order to get results? That's all we need to give them. You can hold bonuses and other things available for them, but as far as information and teaching and processes and tools and all of the things, what's the least they need to know in order to get the result that they want? That is the reason you shouldn't give too much, not that it's giving too much away and revealing too much. It's don't give them too much because it's not helpful. It's not effective, and it's not going to help them to achieve what they want to achieve. So be extremely discerning in how much you give your clients in delivery. So now let's look at the last place. And this is really, content marketing is really the place where I most often get this question outside of proposals. Am I giving away too much for free? When I'm doing my webinars or my whatever I'm doing, am I just giving away too much information? My belief in this goes back to what I would call the dog whisperer effect. If you remember, there was a TV show about this guy who was a dog trainer, and he was called the Dog Whisperer. And I watched that show from the very first season and on and on and on and on. And I watched it as much because I'm a dog person as to watch a consultant or coach in a situation with a client. Every week he comes on, there's a new client, problem dog. He works with them. His belief is that the issue is with the owner. He works with the owner to help the dog. And episode after episode is exactly the same format. He comes in, they tell him what the issue is, just like we would do with our clients, by the way. We come in, they say what the issue is, we do a little magic trick with them, and then they're like, yay, they have great results. We go away, we say a case study for our clients, and that's how we get clients, and that's how we're going to continue to do what we do. Here's the interesting little thing that would happen is that he would solve that problem for that dog. Then the next episode, he would solve that problem for the dog. About the second season, people had seen the show, and so they knew who he was. And so when he would come in, they would say, oh, well, I've watched all the other episodes, and I've seen exactly what you're doing with those dogs, but my dog... And then they would start to tell him about how their situation was different, or they hadn't been able to do that, or whatever. Truthfully, it's the same thing every single time. He had like 3 principles that he was doing. He had his little signature system. It's exactly what we're doing with our clients. But everybody feels like, yeah, but that's what was going on with them. But here's what's going on with me. Everyone feels like they're the exception to all the rules. Everyone feels like their situation is unique. And most people, almost all people, in my experience, cannot take what you've been doing out there and apply that to themselves. And even if they can, they're applying most of what you've shared and not all of it to their own situation. So ideally, what I would love to see, I mean, I've got 180 episodes of this podcast out. I hope that somebody is watching all of them, applying all of it so that when they come to me, they're like, okay, I applied that, and I did this and this. And here's what I got. But what I haven't figured out yet is this. Like, isn't that fun and exciting when you're like, oh, I would love to jump in on that because I have a coachable person who has implemented and who has studied and taken things seriously, and they're already immersed in your brand. Like, this is what you want from your content marketing. So should you then give everything away and put everything out there? You know, some coaches argue, yes, you should. What I would say is there are going to be certain things that either they don't really work well out of context. Like you kind of have to be like sitting here with me to kind of figure it out and understand it. And it's going to be very personal. And if I just put it out there in an article, it's not going to make a lot of sense. So there's going to be some things that you're not going to want to do that with. You may also have some super secret, powerful things, as I do, that I feel like, yeah, I'm not going to put those on the podcast. Well, I'm not going to put those out there. However, I can still share 180 episodes worth of cool, free stuff with an audience. You can still, for example, you could do a free seminar all day long where you teach tons of stuff and put almost everything on the table that you can fit into an 8-hour day. But listen, you've been doing this for years. Like an 8-hour day is still not like working with you for 3 to 6 months to 12 months. Do you hear what I mean? We can't physically give everything away because you just kind of can't put it all out there. People have written books and books and books. And think about, do you have tons of books on your shelf on a certain topic that you're still not an expert in? I mean, if we had a dollar for all the dog training books, diet and exercise books, all the clutter clearing books that we own and still haven't managed to master the area. Again, it's the dog whisperer effect. It's like, yeah, I understand all of that in theory, but what about my basement? But what about my dog? But what about my diet and exercise program? We still need the you in this situation to come in and tell them, how do I apply all of that to me, to my business, to my team, to my unique situation? And as long as there is that question, you got a job. I hope that this has helped you to feel more abundant about sharing your ideas and your content and teaching freely and from your heart so that people can see the passion you have for what you do, so that they can feel like, wow, if there is all that, then I know there must be more. And I still want to know, like, how does that specific idea apply to me? If you'd like to know the answer to that, then you're welcome to get in touch with me through any of the socials, and do pick up that proposal template because it's a really good one. By the way, speaking of giving away, it hurt me to give that one away. There's so much good information in there. It hurt me to share it. And that's how you know you're giving the right amount away. Cool. With that, I am wishing you a profitable and joyful consulting business.